My name is Caitlin Jones. I am an accessibility product manager over on the gaming accessibility team at Xbox. I also have a background in occupational therapy, so very familiar with the clinical hospital spaces and trying to bring gaming into those spaces. So absolutely appreciate everything that the folks on this call do. So what I'll talk about today, it's a little bit more of kind of like a news update where I'm going to go over some of the latest features, settings, and hardware that Xbox has released over the past few months that will hopefully be good resources or tools for y'all to keep in your toolkit, especially for anyone who's working in the gaming space and with players who have disabilities and especially mobility-related disabilities. So I know this is a bit of a broad audience, and some of it might be really in the weeds for some and a repeat for others, but certainly, feel free to throw questions in the chat. I'll be in the Gather Town later, and also I have my email at the end of the presentation, so feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have. So we'll talk about our Xbox Adaptive Controller, some new expanded features for it, some new hardware, and also some access restriction settings that might be helpful to y'all who are using consoles en masse and kind of deploying them throughout larger hospital systems. But before I jump into those updates, just want to quickly talk about the Xbox Adaptive Controller and what it is and sort of fundamentals of adaptive gaming for those who might be newer to this space. So the Adaptive Controller, it was released in 2018. It's kind of a hub of sorts. It is an Xbox controller. It connects wirelessly to console and PC, but what it allows you to do is for anyone who can't use a standard controller, maybe the buttons are too small or they don't have that dexterity, maybe they don't have an arm or fingers at all. The adaptive controller lets you take larger joysticks and buttons and connect them to all of these ports that are on the back and on the sides of the controller, and kind of lets you build out your own setup where buttons are placed in space where the player does have mobility and can consistently activate those. So for example, this picture on the left is Jonah. He has a spinal cord injury and he has some kind of gross shoulder, forearm, wrist flexion, extension movement, but he doesn't have a lot of finger dexterity. He can't use his thumbs on a thumbstick. So he's got two oversized joysticks. He's got a couple of different switch buttons that are assigned to different controls in the game. And then he also has one button actually by his cheek. So he activates that by just pressing his head over into that button whenever he needs to press that control. So, so many windows going up right now. The name of the game with all adaptive setups, and the adaptive controller is an option. There's also the Access controller for PlayStation, the Hori Flex for Nintendo. They're all really wonderful devices and have sort of that same hub style. You plug and play, you can remap buttons and create a setup that works for you. So for example, if you have a racing game like Forza, the main controls in that game are going to be, you need to gas the car, you need to brake it, and probably want to steer it as best as you can. So those are sort of your three core functions. They also have a cool feature called Rewind, where if your car goes off the track too far, you press the Y button and it reverses you back on. I use this feature quite a bit. But for someone who can't use those controls on a standard controller, you might take something like this large U-shaped joystick, plug it into the USB port, have that be how you steer the car. You can remap these two really large buttons on the adaptive controller to gas and brake. You can also connect other buttons to the ports on it, and really just build this adaptive hardware setup and place those buttons and inputs wherever the player might need them. So going into our updates, especially for those folks who have been using the adaptive controller, previously, if you were to take a joystick that had buttons on it, such as this Logitech Flight Stick, and plug it into one of the USB ports on the controller, it would support up to 8 buttons in one stick. So even though joysticks like this have a lot more than 8 buttons, unfortunately, the controller would only let you use and recognize 8 of them. Since our recent firmware update a couple of months ago, we are now supporting up to 12 buttons on those joysticks, as well as a hat switch for sticks that do have them. If you're not familiar with a hat switch, it's usually on flight sticks, kind of like this one, but it's just a four-way switch that sits at the top. It's that little circular button, as well as two sticks. And I'll talk about the two sticks more. So yeah, up to 12 buttons now, which is really fantastic. We're very excited about that. Even though it might not seem like a huge deal, being able to use more buttons on devices you already have is something that was really important to us. So what this means, some use case examples for a device like the quad stick. Anyone who has used a quad stick before, if you're not familiar, it's a mouth-based joystick. It's really great for players who might not have any movement below the head or neck. And this model, it has 3 sip and puff tubes. So let's say you puff into the leftmost straw and it's your A button, and then you sip on it, it's your X button. Times that by 2. Now you've got 6 controls. The whole thing moves around like a joystick. It's a very, very robust and powerful device. We actually know a few professional players who are paralyzed from the neck down, and they solely use this for esports and professional gaming, and they're really fantastic. So with this new update, previously the quad stick was very limited when you would plug it directly into an adaptive controller, because again, it would only accept those 8 buttons in one of the sticks. But the quad stick actually supports both left and right stick movement. So now you get much fuller functionality in using the quad stick if that's what's working for your patients. By connecting it through the Xbox adaptive controller, it'll support both sticks and 12 buttons for the quad stick alone. And then another kind of cool use case for this update is being able to create a true one-handed setup more easily. So I have this video here, and what this is showing is I have the hat switch mapped to left stick, and then I have like the larger actual flight stick portion mapped to right stick. So using just this one device, you can get both left and right stick for those true one-handed gamers who kind of need both sticks in one singular device, which is a big barrier for a lot of folks now. Definitely for me, when I go out and do adaptive setups, is trying to support both sticks with one hand or one movement. So hat switch support, very excited about that. The hat switch is mapped to the D-pad by default, but all you would need to do to map it to either left or right stick is just go into your adaptive controller remapping software, and where the D-pad up, down, left, right is shown, you would just remap those to the cardinal directions of either left and right stick, and you can swap those however you want. If you want hat switch to be right stick and the Logitech stick to be left stick, it's pretty flexible in that way. Another new feature that has recently come out, we call them the toggle holds. They're pretty similar to sticky keys on a keyboard. So especially for folks who might have limited strength or endurance, and holding down the button to sprint or even to walk forward for a prolonged period, character movement is just unnecessarily taxing. You can now assign any button on both the adaptive controller, but also our Elite Series 2 controllers as a toggle. So I might press the stick click to sprint once, the character continues to sprint until I hit stick click again, and then the sprinting stops. So just another thing to have in your toolkit if you're working with anybody who might benefit from something like that. And you can assign the toggle for both the primary setting for the button on the adaptive controller. You could also use it for the shifted setting if you are using shift. And then next I'll talk about some of our new hardware options. I'm going to play our recent announce video just because a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it's way more exciting than me talking about it. So hopefully the sound works, but if not, definitely let me know. No sound. Oh, there is sound, it's just soft. Okay, let me see. Any better?
Leo has issues with this.
No sound still. Okay. Sorry about that. Sound is coming from your mic. I think you need to let sound when you share your screen. Okay. Maybe we'll just I'll share the link to this video in chat, but it's a really heartwarming video and it shows our new Xbox Adaptive Joystick. If anyone wants to take a look at that. But this is it. So we announced this device back in August at Gamescom. It's a one-handed joystick. It's intended to be a companion for the Xbox Adaptive Controller, but it will also work with direct to console with no Xbox Adaptive Controller or direct to PC. So you don't need to own or use an adaptive controller in order to use this device. It is coming available for purchase in early 2025. We will keep you all posted on an exact date for that. And the price point is $29.99. So we're very excited for this. When we were developing this device, we wanted to, one, kind of support feedback that we were getting that it's really hard to find affordable joysticks, especially for the Xbox Adaptive Controller. So we wanted to keep that price point as low as possible. And that is unfortunately why the device is, it's wired, and just to keep battery and Bluetooth module weight down, the device is wired, but it allowed us to keep us at that price point. And ideally, when you're using it with the adaptive controller, you don't need that long of a wire. But the USB-C port is, or the cord, I should say, is detachable. So if you are using it in more of a living room, 10 foot away type scenario, you can attach a USB-C cord as long as you want and kind of customize it from there. There's 4 buttons on the face. There's 2 kind of in the trigger position. And then, of course, the thumbstick itself. They're all going to be fully remappable, similar to how you could do with the Xbox Adaptive Controller today. You can also use it with things like Xbox Controller Assist, which was formerly Xbox Copilot. Fortunately, we had to rebrand our Xbox Copilot naming. We lost the battle to broader Windows Copilot, but it's okay. So if you see Controller Assist, that is just the new name for Xbox Copilot, which is when 2 controllers are linked together through software to be used as one. So yeah, that's our new adaptive joystick. Oh, I should mention one of the other cool things about it. There is a threaded quarter 20 size threaded mount at the bottom of it, and that allows you to mount it using typical tripod camera mounts. So if you want to mount it and have somebody use it with their chin or with their foot, other body parts that are not necessarily a hand or a thumb, that makes it quite easy to do that and keep the device up and sturdy. Another cool resource that was announced and is actually available to start using now at around the same time back in August is our adaptive thumbstick toppers with Xbox Design Lab. So for folks who are just looking for ways to build up the thumbstick shapes and sizes of their controllers, this will work with the new adaptive joystick, our Elite controller, and just a standard Xbox Series XS controller, but don't necessarily have 3D modeling background or knowledge, or can easily create custom 3D printed toppers. Through Xbox Design Lab, you can now, and this video does not have sound, luckily, but the process is really as simple as choosing your controller, choosing from the different shapes that we offer, and then from there you can use sliders to customize the height and the width of those toppers. And once you're done, it will generate a free 3D printable file for you. Like I mentioned, it's free, there's no cost. You can create and download as many as you want. And then you would just take that file that's already like in the STL format to either a 3D printer if you have access to one, or there are 3D printing services, if you Google them, that you can actually send the file to them and they'll print it for you at a pretty low cost. So really excited for this. I think, we weren't trying to reinvent the wheel. We know 3D printing has always been a thing, but in working with a lot of the folks who are in hospital and clinical settings, we also know that having the time or knowledge to 3D model and create custom designs for toppers, just so somebody who maybe can't use the tiny thumbstick, but can use a palm with a large sphere or use their chin, was important. So we just wanted to offer sort of a lighter touch, more accessible way to access ways to customize the toppers on your thumbsticks for all of the controllers. One of my favorites of these is, we call it the custom threaded one, and it looks kind of like you can just pinch it, and I'm sure you could if you wanted to, but actually the idea behind this one was for if you don't want a 3D model, but also none of the current shapes are a great fit, you can use this shaped topper and attach moldable plastics, like Instamorph, Sugru, clay, that kind of thing, and actually create an entirely custom shape. I've used this, I've molded it to the exact shape as a player's hand or a grasp, and it just kind of dries like that, and the metal or the plastics kind of mold within these little threaded holes. This way it has a much tighter grip to it. So better alternative to what I used to do, which was attach plastics directly to the thumbstick, in which you then cannot take it off, so that controller becomes that player's controller. But this allows you to, mold things to specific to a player's hand, and also be able to remove that so that controller is not, out of commission for the rest of your players. So here's just a few different images of some of the different toppers that we have and how they've been used to adapt player scenarios. So on the top left, we have somebody who's using the large sphere shaped to operate the adaptive joystick with their chin, using the large kind of dome mushroom shaped one to more easily manipulate thumbstick with your foot. Definitely lots of different options here. And we're always looking for feedback. So certainly if there's a shape that you'd really like to see or find yourself using often, feel free and please do shoot me an email. I have it again at the end of the presentation, and we're always looking to add more to this. Some more hardware. These are not created by Xbox, but they are part of our Design for Xbox program. So both of the devices I'm about to show you work entirely with the Xbox ecosystem as well as with PC, and we're really, really excited about them. One of them is the 8BitDo Lite SE controller. It's a really, really light touch controller. So all of the buttons and thumbsticks are ultra easy to move, easy to actuate. And you'll also notice that the bumper and trigger buttons are actually on the face of the controller. And you can't see it in this image, but the bottom side of the controller has sort of a sticky, grippy material that keeps the controller from sliding. So this is a really great option, especially if you're working with folks who have, like spinal muscular atrophy, muscular dystrophy, just very, very limited strength, but small movements that they can do with their fingers. Really, really love this controller for that. It's compact, it keeps everything close together, and ideally tries to minimize, the amount of movement that a player has to do to be able to reach all of those buttons. And it also comes with these two larger switch buttons as well, and has two 3.5mm ports on the device for you to connect those buttons or other buttons that you might already have for your adaptive controller or other hardware. And then the second is the BioWave Proteus controller. I see this as less of a controller and more of a kit. It is a very, very robust kit. It has all of these different modular pieces that you can connect to one another and create very customized setups, again, for a wide variety of players. I will say the buttons are quite small on this device, so again, probably better for players who have more of that like smaller but limited strength movement that want more of a compact design. But one of the cool things about it, and I love this image on the right here, is again that common issue of getting two sticks in a single hand or a single movement and putting one stick on the bottom of the device and another stick by the thumb and creating sort of a one-handed support through that. They also have a really, really awesome website online where they have different configurations that people have made, excuse me, and will kind of guide you through if you're not sure where to start, especially because there are so many options with this device. And then finally, this is not necessarily an accessibility setting or a piece of hardware, but potentially important or useful for you folks who are working with consoles in mass and deploying them is some of our new access restriction settings. And these were actually a few of them built based on direct feedback from working with folks like Seattle Children's and a lot of other folks that are on this call. And what these settings allow you to do is essentially set a pin, and only if you know and enter the pin are you able to do any of the options that are on this screen. So adding and creating profiles, removing profiles, allowing people to install games, remove games, even things like disabling the use of the Edge web browser on console, you can lock that down to ensure that only players that you want to be able to use those settings can. Possibly one of the most relevant here is the delete profiles on sign out checkbox. So if you do have folks who are signing in during their stay and then forget to sign out upon leaving, as soon as that profile is signed, or forget to, I guess, delete their credential information upon leaving, as soon as that profile is signed out, it'll delete all of the information for it. And I saw a hand, though that is also all I got for you all. So thank you so much. I really appreciate, again, being here, and certainly feel free. There's an email for our team, xaccess@microsoft.com. Also feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to answer questions. We're always looking for feedback and ways that we can make our products better and more accessible. So don't be shy.